Hello, and welcome to the Social Power Lab podcast, brought to you by Vokes Leadership Group.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Social Power Lab. We are Vokes Leadership Group. I'm everyone's favorite French boy, Adrian Deschamps II. And I got with me Dr. Ted Vokes, Master Yoda extraordinaire of the social applied psychology movement. That
Do
is,
I do I look like I have a green tinge to my overall complexion? I am long pointy ears. I take it if if the rubber suit fits, wear it, right?
honestly,
Uh,
that would be probably one of the best things that we could dress you up for Halloween as. That would be hilarious if we all dressed up as little Jedis, but you were
that
Yoda.
yeah, I'm 6 foot tall though, so like I'd
You'd
have to
just
be
be a big
crouching a
Yoda.
lot.
Big Yoda. Amir can be Obi-Wan. I'll be
Yes.
I'll be Luke.
Yeah.
We
No.
have this
Yeah.
all planned out. Okay. It's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, no, we're all good to go. Yeah, Amir has to give us a pass this week. We miss him, but we'll have him back soon, and we'll carry on with some exciting stuff this week, right?
Hmm.
You want to tell everybody what we're doing this week?
Yeah, so we're finally going to start talking about what do we do in response to high conflict people or those with dark personality traits, and how do we respond to these behaviors. And it's a lot of, you know, us kind of accepting certain behaviors and accepting things that we're not going to be able to change, and essentially accepting ways in which we're going to have to ignore power attempts, right? And we're going to have to kind of use power in a unique way. And you'll understand what we mean by that later. A lot of these tips and tricks that we're going to talk about are very applicable. They're
Absolutely.
just not very fun. And that's kind of the difficulty with it, right? Is it's not like it's, things that nobody can, it doesn't require like special, you know
Special training
Olympic
or anything.
training to do it. Just
Yeah.
it's things that can just be like emotionally hard for us, right? Where our emotions kind of want to react one way, but we gotta really use our prefrontal cortex and react a different way. So that's what we're going to really dive into today, and we've been teaching these strategies for quite a long time now, and we always find that the folks that learn them and use them are very happy with how they're able to manage the situations better.
Well put. And yeah, this is derived from the work of Bill Eddy and the High Conflict Institute. And we'll refer back to resources that they can provide for some of these tips. We've taken it well beyond their course 7 to 14 tips, and hopefully growing. But before we dive into what are you going to do when you have determined that you have somebody who's dark in your life and therefore are demonstrating the classic high conflict pattern, which we're going to remind everybody of before we dive in here. But um, why don't you take the high conflict characteristics here, Adrian? You want to run us through them?
Yeah, so essentially the things that you'll see is you'll see these persistent behaviors, okay? And that's a really key word, is persistent. These things are happening in multiple situations, in multiple environments, with multiple people persistently.
Across
And
their life, all facets of their life. They don't
yeah,
just reserve this for family or workplace or hockey team or wherever. They do this persistently. There's the word persistent. Sorry.
yeah, no. And yeah, it's the first one is all or nothing or black and white thinking, right? So it's either this way or it's this way. It's you're either with me or you're against me. You're either my friend or you're my enemy. You either love me or you hate me, right? It's these kind of black and white things, where there's no middle ground, right? There's no compromise. There's this way and this way. And we see that the average person, when they get very, very stressed out, they engage in black and white thinking, right? And a lot of, stuff in psychology that we look at, and cognitive psychology and things like that, teaches that these are really unhelpful thinking styles, and they're not really true thinking styles, right? There's always so much more possibility, so many shades of gray and nuance with all kinds of things. And what we see from high conflict people is they tend to make things black and white, right? So they tend to create a conflict and then put you in a position where you're dealing with a black or white situation that they've created in their mind.
And you're either with me or against me.
Yeah, you're
There's
either with me or
nothing in
against me. You're either trying to make my life harder,
yeah,
or
or you're
you're the bad
acquiescing.
guy, I'm the good guy. Like, it's always these dichotomies, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is persistent unmanaged emotions. So this is where, it's not just like somebody had a bad day and they, had a outburst, right? And it's like, oh, so and so's, having a rough week. Sorry about, like, it's something that you see regularly, and you start to kind of feel like, I can't say this around Bob because I know that Bob's going to get really upset and start, verbally attacking people. Or I
Yeah.
know that Bob's going to try to get me back. Or I know that Bob's going to, I don't know, steal my lunch money. Like, whatever the case is.
I think we're
And
back to Bob the Barber, aren't we? Wasn't it
Bob the
from last
barber.
week? Yeah, where wasn't it Bob's
Oh,
Barber Shop
God,
we
the
were talking about
barber.
last week? Yeah.
Yeah. His name wasn't Bob, but
No, I
I mean,
know.
we'll pretend his
We
name's Bob.
chose that one. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of just like you essentially are on eggshells because the person is going to have a very inappropriate, large, and potentially damaging behavioral reaction, right? And this is where you see, you know, kids of high conflict parents go like, I cannot under any circumstances tell my parents this because they're going to lose it, right? Or you see, in different workplaces, oh yeah, no, don't give Bob feedback on his performance because he's not gonna take it constructively. He's just gonna fight you on it and then mess up the production line or like whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's these unmanaged emotions, and a
And
lot of. Go
in
ahead.
that regard, there's a little nuance we didn't talk about, which is that because they can't manage their emotions, and you learn this, they actually can I don't want to say I'll say it bluntly and then I'll curl it back. They actually teach you to lie,
Yeah,
right? As
yeah,
in, like you gave the example, I could never tell my parents this. They will absolutely lose it, or my mom or
yeah,
my dad or whomever. And so I'm not endorsing the fact that, we lie, but um, people learn. People who are abused by these people will learn, don't bring this to the boss. Don't bring this to the parent. Don't bring this to, our middle child, wherever this person is situated in a social context. They teach you that the consequences of telling them the truth. Or you said, don't give them performance feedback, right?
yeah,
It won't be worth telling them they're screwing up. I'll just fix it after hours,
yeah,
because it's just not worth it. They're going to lose it on me.
yeah. We're gonna have a bigger problem than the
Yeah,
problem we have
yeah.
to begin
So
with.
that's what we mean by they teach you to lie. It's kind
Yeah,
of an
and
overstatement,
it's
but it's a self-protective thing. And we're
yep.
not suggesting you should do that or continue that, but
No,
that is an effect that they
yeah.
they have.
And it's something
And
that we see commonly that people
yes,
do to kind of
yeah,
protect themselves.
yeah. And on this note, there is a caveat too, which is that as much as unmanaged emotions typically go with the dark traits and the high conflict pattern that Adrian's describing, some are able to contain their emotions. Those with more prefrontal, um, what am I saying here, Adrian?
Psychopathy.
Well, yeah, the really organized psychopaths
Yeah,
who are, high Machiavellian, who can plan and execute. They are particularly dangerous because they're harder to spot and they may not have unmanaged emotions. Um, Now, that's just a caveat.
Hmm.
It's rare. Most high conflict people are visibly high conflict, and that's most with dark traits. When they want what they want, they get what they want or will do anything to try to get it. So,
Yeah.
but there are some who are more calculating, more the classic Hollywood villain, supervillain, but those are really quite rare. They not that they're non-existent. They kind of do exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, they might not be as rare as we think. It's just they're so hard to spot, right?
Good point.
And that's,
Yeah.
something that you see. And yeah, like things like Machiavellianism and psychopathy, specifically factor 1 psychopathy. It's just there's this impulse control,
Yeah.
right?
They,
That
as
other
in they can control their impulses
Yeah,
better
like
than most psychopaths who can't.
factor 2 psychopaths are known for not having good impulse control. So they have the outbursts, and then that's where you see things like, verbal and physical violence and whatever.
Yeah.
And then narcissism as well is has really poor impulse control, right? So
Mm. Hmm.
yeah, but this unmanaged emotions, essentially you become in tune to how much they can't manage their emotions, right? So you know that it's easier to avoid them, or to walk around them, or to go out of your way to do something extra so that you don't have to deal with their emotional reaction, right? Like Ted's example, staying after hours. Rather than telling Bob that he needs to do a better job and this is what his job requires of him, I'm just going to fix his work after, because we're just going to have a bigger problem if we tell him.
So if
There's
Bob the barber is bad at cutting my hair, I'm gonna go home and is this what you're implying that I've got to go fix my hair?
go
No, all
fix my
right.
hair after the haircut.
I'm just being an idiot. Yeah. Yeah. That
and
I'll make up for him. Yeah.
and then we have our persistent extreme behaviors and or threats. And these are things where, the people get really extreme to gain power, right? If you do this, I will sabotage all of your relationships. Or if you do this, I will get you fired. Or, different threats. Or, one of my favorites, it's not my favorite, I'm saying it's my favorite because I hate it so much. If you make me do this, like, it's your fault, right?
Yeah.
Things about like punishment and ultimatums, and you know
Or
um
even vague things like, well, if you don't do it my way, you watch this company go through the floor. We will
yeah.
be in a hell in a handbasket, right? And they just predict or prognosticate dire outcomes, right? That's what they'll be doing, even if it can be very vague. Or you just watch what'll happen.
Mhm. Yeah, it's exhausting, right?
Mm.
And that's where you see so many people struggle, because they can feel so guilty, right, or scared to respond. And they're like, well, I can't tell them that I'm upset with them, because then they're gonna, like, never talk to me again, or they're gonna go and try to ruin my reputation with my friends, or they're like, just all these extreme things. The examples are endless. I can't even get a coherent one out, because I have about 1,000 examples run through my head every time I talk about this.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, the
Well,
behaviors can get extreme. Absolutely.
watch what the board of directors has to say about this when I let them know your decision,
Yeah.
right? You know, um, all kinds of sometimes veiled threats, sometimes absolutely overt threats. Um, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And
Yeah. Oh,
if you
and then there's that point about the extreme behaviors. I should calm down. You should calm down. Anybody would behave the way I'm behaving if they were treated as horribly as I've been treated by you. Right. There's the extreme behaviors and the justification for that, right?
yeah. Yeah, or you know things like this is just an example that I heard one time of just two friends having a verbal argument and one friend wanting to walk away and say, okay, I'm going home now. And, the high conflict person goes and like stands behind the car, right?
Wow.
They're like,
Yeah.
you're not pulling out of the driveway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've heard other extreme examples of a similar situation to that where, tires were slashed, right? Just, extreme stuff. So that's a consistent thing that we see as well.
Yeah.
And then there's a persistent preoccupation with blaming others and taking no personal responsibility. And this is the biggest one. This truly is the biggest one because, the everyday person can engage in, undesirable behavior, but then we feel bad about it. And then we want to
Yeah.
make amends. And then we want to fix it. And then we think to ourselves, okay, I should better myself and I should work on my emotions and I should work on my distorted thinking patterns and I should work on, my social skills or whatever, right? But the high conflict person never sees it as their fault or their problem. And if they do understand that they're harming someone else, and this is my biggest thing, they choose that what they want is more important than who they harm, right? So it's kind of like, you know, oh, I understand what I'm doing, but, just basically it doesn't matter because I want what I want. And taking no personal responsibility for their actions, always blaming other people, right?
Mhm.
You see it in workplaces all the time where somebody gets, you know, written up for their reaction about something, right? Let's say they got some criticism and then they have a big emotional reaction and they go, well, no, I wouldn't have made that mistake unless, John did this to tick me off and then it made me, right? Like it's never their fault. It's always somebody else. And there's no like responsibility of and no accountability of like, okay, I'm going to own this and better myself, right? It's never that. It's always that it's everyone else's fault, right? And this is kind of in our definition of high conflict people is the lax accountability for their actions or they just don't care about the
Yeah.
impact of their actions, right? Which also leads to lacking accountability.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the biggest thing is yeah, it's just that rejection of accountability and even empathy, right? Like you just
Yeah.
not
Oh, there's
caring,
none.
right?
Yeah.
The egocentrism of not
And
being able
callousness.
to and callousness, not being able to see other perspectives, not caring about the effects on other people. Like it's just I want what I want, and that's what psychopaths and Machiavellians do, right? It's I want
Narcissists and yeah,
power, I want status, I
sadism.
want money, I want whatever. I'm going to do whatever to get it. I don't care who I exploit. I don't care what terrible things I do. If I get what I want, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
So I'll just, let everyone kind of sit with that. I'm sure they can think of examples.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we got
Well,
next? Rolling up here.
so now what are we going to do about it, right? That's this episode's about. And as I said, we got 14 tips, seven of which come from the High Conflict Institute, but we've inserted some more through the course of our experience working with dark individuals and helping organizations deal with dark personalities in their workspaces. This applies, though, these tips apply to all facets of life. If you've got somebody on your hockey team or somebody in your family, it works too. Of course, we apply this primarily in the workplace because that's what we do, but it's just good social psychology for managing very, very difficult, well, the very most difficult people on the planet.
And we'll come back to you with more of that right after the break. So stay tuned, and we're going to dig into how do we manage these high conflict behaviors.
This week's spotlight is on workplace surveys. If you're ready to move past anecdote and politics to real data, Voke's Leadership Group designs custom workplace surveys tailored to your specific goals and needs. From leadership and culture diagnostics to needs assessments and engagement surveys, our team helps you interpret the data through a social power lens, so your next move will be informed, strategic, and defensible. Thank you, and now back to today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you've had a reflective break as we did. And yeah, let's get to the bottom line of managing high conflict behaviors. So, Ted,
Yes.
where are we going next?
Yeah, a couple things as a lead in, just so that everybody is, aware. Everything that you do in your interactions with friends and family and colleagues at work, or those who maybe you're in a leadership position who you lead, um, none of that is going to work with the 20% of the population who are dark and fall into that high conflict pattern, which is virtually the same thing. So you got to essentially understand that their psychology is completely different. And so, as a Adrian was suggesting at the outset, these are not going to feel like familiar things to you. In order to, it's like you gotta learn this set of behaviors that are not how you would want to interact with somebody, not how you'd want to lead somebody if you're in a leadership role. But you're switching from, you know, genuine, honest interactions to a self-protective mode, protecting you, protecting others that may be looking to you for support in that regard from the dark individual. And so everything that works well with other people will be exploited and turned against you by somebody who is dark and high conflict. Um, and this leaves you feeling absolutely bewildered after you interact with them. Like, I just was absolutely appropriate, and it's how I would want somebody to interact with me. And somehow that just took a whole different direction that I can't even understand myself. Um, it's because their psychology is that different. They literally are not going to respond to how you would want to be treated by others and how you treat others, outside this 20%. Does that cover it there, Adrian?
That pretty well nails it. Honestly, that was the whole plate with a side of Jello, man. That was beautiful.
Well, let's dive into what these magic tips are, and I think you gave a great run up into them because you indicated that some of them are nothing that you do. It's just changing your cognitive framing of
Hmm.
these individuals. So,
Yeah. Okay, I do the first one. I love this one.
yeah, you go,
I just
you
love
go.
to yell this one to the world. It's not about you. Tip number one, it is not about you, right?
Yeah,
I once had a mentor tell me, not Ted, surprisingly, but a mentor, another mentor I had that was actually from a placement that Ted put me in. She said to me, she's like, let me save you years of stress. It's not about you, right? Other people's behavior that they project in different conflicts with you, it's rarely about you, right? It's more so their thinking and their emotions that are already kind of present in them to begin with, that are being stirred up by the conflict, or maybe they're enjoying the conflict, whatever it is. It's not about you, right? And yeah, their thinking, their emotions, their behaviors are not caused by you. So you don't need to blame yourself or defend yourself, right? They might say to you, oh, you made me do this. I'm flipping out because you pushed me to my limit. Well, maybe you should have a better strategy when you're pushed to your limit, right? Because I do. And like all
Yeah.
of us do, right? All of us, we choose how we're going to respond, and we consider other people when we respond. And yeah, so this one, it's not about you, right?
And
With
they
high
want to
conflict,
make it about you.
and they want to
That's the
make it
thing,
about you, right? And
you know.
that's part of the gaslighting.
Yeah.
That's part of the game, right? Is you know, making it where you're the antagonist and you're bringing this out of them. Or if you're not bringing it out of them, then you deserve it because of who you are, or whatever the narrative is that they're trying to use, to whatever the reality shaping power attempt is that they're using.
Yeah. And we're going to
And
come back to that one for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
and there's a lot that happens to us when we're pulled into conflict like this, right? Because conflict is not a comfortable state of mind for 80% of the population, right? It's very distressing, and we can't think as clear, right? We can't reason the way we usually do. We can't articulate our words the way we usually do. And a lot of the strategy that a high conflict person uses is to pull you into that space so that, you know, you're you're vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so just remember, it's not about you, right? You don't choose somebody's behavior. You don't control somebody's behavior, right? I was talking about this in a different context of, even if you were to give somebody a compliment, you don't control how they're going to take the compliment, right? And it's kind of like the same principle there, is just like other people's thoughts and feelings and behaviors are not your responsibility, right? It's their responsibility. So, yeah, it's not about you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, but I guess that was an Adrian talk.
It
But now
was.
let's have a TED Talk.
Okay.
Hey.
All my talks are TED Talks. Yeah. But so tip number 2, you are not going to change them, their beliefs, or their behavior. Okay. You're going to try to manage your behavior. We'll come to that. But you're not going to change them. You're not going to um, bring them around to seeing things your way. They have no investment whatsoever in seeing things your way. Their whole investment is getting their desires met. And so you're either with me or against me. You're either going to acquiesce to what I want, in which case, you know, you should have done that all along, or you're the barrier. And this is where the black and white thinking comes in and all the rest. So um, these individuals, their prefrontal cortex, which we've spoken about and we'll be talking lots about in the future, is where we understand power. But that's not what drives power. The limbic system is where power is experienced in the reward, neutral, or the coercive, vectors, the threat vector. And so they are fundamentally wired differently than you. And so don't try to change them. And we'll show you what to do in place of that, but give it up. It's one of those points of, you're not, it's not about you, and you're not going to change them. So those are just 2 beliefs we want you to inculcate into your thinking when you're dealing with these individuals.
Mhm. And tip number 3, this is another great one. Don't tell a high conflict person that they are high conflict.
Yes.
um, don't tell a narcissist that they're a narcissist,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah, it's I've seen it go south before, and
Uh-huh.
as tempting as it is to kind of tell someone that you have this information and that you can see through their behavior, and that understand the tactics that they're deploying, it it doesn't go well, just to put it lightly.
Yeah.
Because again, they're not willing to see your point of view,
Yeah.
right? They're not willing to
And
have a back and forth dialogue. Sorry, go ahead.
well, and you're actually giving them information that they can go out and look up and then leverage against you, because they'll come back with, well, I know all about high conflict people and I'm not one of them, but you are.
Yeah.
So I would hazard the guess of saying, never in the history of dealing with high conflict people has it ever gone well for the person who tells that high conflict person that they're high conflict.
Ooh,
You're
put that
giving
on a
away
billboard.
you're giving away some of your power by giving them that information. They're
Yeah.
not going to agree. They're not going to go, "Oh my goodness, you're right. I am such a high conflict person. Well, I need to change my ways." No, refer back to tip number two. We're not going to change them. They're not going to change. And so really, and Bill Eddy makes this point, really, really well in their literature. Don't reveal this to them. Keep in your back pocket.
Yeah. And, the one example where I was, somebody learned about narcissism and told a high conflict person that they're, being a narcissist. That high conflict person, just like Ted explained, proceeded to use narcissism as a weaponized term to fire back at basically anyone that they didn't like. And it's like, oh, you don't agree with me? You're a narcissist. You don't see my point of view? You're a narcissist. Oh, you're arguing back with me and not just listen, like, not just, submitting to my power attempt. You're a narcissist. Like, it just becomes, that language just becomes really used improperly. Yeah. So it's a good one to remember. Just, yeah. And we're going to teach you how to respond too. So that's the
Yeah.
important thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So tip number four, always assume deception and a hidden agenda. And this is intriguing in that they may be telling you the truth, but they're telling you that truth with a hidden agenda. So they're either lying or they're manipulating a truth in order to get their way. So if once you know somebody is dark, always assume that they are manipulating, deceiving, masking their true intentions. So, what's an example? One of your kids comes to you and tattles on one of your other kids, or one of your employees comes to you and tattles on another employee. Well, their reason for doing so, it may be true. Maybe that you know somebody hit somebody or what have you, but their intention in telling you this truth is to manipulate. Now that could also be a total lie. All this employee assaulted another employee, and we've seen cases like this in the workplace. And what was it? The employee walked by another employee, and their shoulders brushed, and suddenly the one says, I've been struck by this person. I want this person charged with assault. And it happened to be on video, and everybody looking at the videos were like, man, it was a narrow passageway between two desks. Like there was really no way they could pass each other without brushing, and that's all that happened. Um, but the high conflict person wanted to trump up criminal charges against another person, and so there it is on video, right? And that even orchestrated the whole event so that that person would be seen to have struck the hapless victim who is calculating that. So don't believe that they are telling you truth, whatever they're telling you. The kind of the joke is, how do you know if somebody with dark personality traits is lying to you? Their lips are moving. That's probably a good way to think about it. Okay, because even if it's the truth, it's being given to you in such a way as to manipulate you. Remember, they like to manipulate power holders. So I may not be able to get my colleague in trouble or my sibling in trouble, but I can tell the boss or I can tell the parent, and they can get them in trouble. So I'm going to leverage, somebody with more power to produce the outcome that I want. Remember, that's power, right? The production of intended effects. I want my sibling to be in trouble, or I want my sibling to, get grounded, or I want my, coworker or my boss. I want my boss to get in trouble.
Hmm. Very
Why
well
don't you,
said.
why don't you do number 5?
Number 5. So once you know someone is high conflict, only meet with them when you have another person with you. And
Yeah.
this is big because, the way that narratives of conflict are manipulated and, you know, the he said, she said kind of stuff that goes on, it's really important to kind of just have another person there to like just observe and also just be able to kind of recount what happened with you, even just to reflect, right? To reflect, but also if the high conflict person starts making false allegations or, accusing you of something or claiming you said something, right? More gaslighting attempts.
Yeah.
Having, another person with you can kind of reassure, like, no, that didn't happen, or yes, that did happen, or whatever, right? So that's really important. And we often advise, you know, another, when it comes to like email exchanges, for example, like get everything in writing,
Yeah.
right? Just in case it becomes a bigger situation and, you know, there's more
Better have to make
fabrication
it
and
a bigger situation. Yeah.
yeah. So that's really important. And it's a protective measure. And again, like this isn't a thing that you want to have to do, right? It might even sound like, well, that's a lot, right? Do I really need to do that? Unfortunately, yes. Because again, like I said, these strategies aren't fun. they're they're necessary, right? And yeah, it just kind of helps kind of neutralize the situation and safeguard against things that, this person is willing to do to you that you wouldn't be willing to do to them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well put. Yeah. So tip number 6, don't try to make logical suggestions. That's counterintuitive, right? Because we want to be helpful or we want to be suggestive of how things could go better. But they are limbic. Their prefrontal cortex, where logic is processed, is only a servant to um, the limbic system. The limbic system wants what it wants, and they really rely on their prefrontal cortex as just a tool of the limbic system, as opposed to a partner, right? Um, the limbic, the prefrontal cortex are really intertwined fundamentally anyway. They're not actually literally separate systems. The brain is one big complex system, but they do have those, specializations and functions of certain structures, and so it's a we're saying that they are fundamentally driven only by limbic drivers, um, and threats and rewards and neutrality. Um, as one famous psychologist, who I forget the name of right now, we'll have to look it up, said you can understand all of psychology with 3 words: yama, yuck, and meh. So you got the yum, which is the reward. You got the yuck, which is the alarm or the aversion system, and then meh is indifference. Um, so that's what operates for them. It's not logic. They will tear you apart if you try to make a logical suggestion. So not worth your time.
Mm. And our next one is psychology loves acronyms. So this one's an easy one. I want you to think of your ear. Just whatever one's your favorite. Your left ear, your right ear. I got both of mine pierced with 00 spacers, so they're both the same to me. But something called ear statements, and this is from Bill Eddy himself, who kind of, foundationally put this work together on how to respond. And ear statements, it stands for empathy, attention, and respect. And these are principles that are meant to calm the person down or to even just kind of de escalate as much as you can, unless it would be dangerous to do so, right? Obviously, if it's an escalating situation and your safety is a concern, then, don't try to do this.
Get out. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And so one of these things, this is my favorite one, a tool I use so much is provide validation that you heard them, but don't agree or disagree, right? So you need to provide that you're listening, right? But you can't agree or disagree. So you got to kind of take your personal feelings out of it. And one of the greatest sentences that I've learned in this work is, okay, I hear you, right? Or just, I hear you. Yep. I,
Yep.
or I hear what you're saying,
Yeah, I got
right?
it.
Making a point that your brain has taken it in,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
you don't emotionally agree or
Yeah,
cognitively agree, right? You don't want to validate their emotions with like, things agreeing and saying like, "Oh, I completely understand," right? Or, "Yeah, you have every right to feel that way." Like that's agreeing, right? And that's going to
yeah,
validate things that might be wrong.
yeah.
Also, don't listen forever, right? Don't just sit there and like let them just, you know, wear out the hamster wheel, right? You can just kind of feedback like, okay, so here's what I understand, and then you kind of repeat back to them what they said, right?
And by the way, for those of you who know active listening, this is a variant on active
Very
listening,
similar, yeah.
right? Yeah. And so but ear is a nice acronym, as Adrian is saying. So,
And also, physical boundaries, right? Just stay at a arm's length, right? In extreme cases, know your exits. Meet with another person there,
as we
right? But
just said,
basically,
yeah,
the most you can still have a lot of power in this situation without it escalating by making a point that you're listening, right? People, whether your everyday person, high conflict, whatever, they want to be listened to, right?
hmm,
So it's important to make that they know that the information they're trying to portray to you is being taken in, right? And that could be a de-escalating factor. So ear
yeah.
statements is another strategy to use.
But here's one
In
that I used in a highly escalated situation where the person, we thought we had the room stripped of anything that could have been used as a weapon, and this person actually picked up a stapler, and in that moment I was like, oh shit, why didn't we think of the stapler? Right.
I shouldn't
But
be laughing, but this
no,
is
I know, but
we
it's
just
like
yeah
who thinks that, right?
yeah
And that, since then I have learned that anything can be turned into a weapon.
oh anything
But okay, I hear you. You're very upset right now. Okay, so I have not validated that they have a right to be upset. I have shown them that I see that they are upset.
yeah
And that's that. Okay, I hear you. You're really upset right now. Yes, I am. And then you could get drawn in. Well, I guess you have a right to. No, don't do that. Like, I see that you're really upset. you know. So it's a methodology to try to de-escalate. Again, if the person is violent or has a history of violence, uh, you got to keep yourself and other people safe. So, like, just don't try ear under those
yeah
circumstances. Take every precaution.
or
And
or
go
if
ahead.
you are trying ear as a de-escalation tool, your priority is to get out of the situation,
Yeah.
right? De-escalate enough to when you can part ways.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Good point.
And next, ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah. This is some of the greatest brilliance of the High Conflict Institute. And they have entire books on this, and we would encourage, people to see what they have online in this regard, because a this is where you're good. It's probably the one that demands the most work, but it has a tremendous amount of payoff in doing it, and it's called, well, only respond to hostile communications or misinformation with what Bill Eddy and his colleagues call BIF. And BIF is an acronym. It is for brief, informative, firm, and friendly. So BIFF. And um, the idea is not to give the person, the high conflict individual, the person with those dark traits that are out to try to manipulate you, more fodder for manipulation and escalating the conflict. So um, what you're doing, and the ability encourages people to, and as do we, try to communicate in writing as much as possible. And that would mean that you may get a really nasty long email. These individuals often write very long, exhaustive kinds of emails that are accusing you of all sorts of things, or insinuating that you're a terrible sibling or partner, or spouse, boss, colleague, what have you. And what you do is you look at this expansive amount of nonsense that's been fed to you, and you reply to it with as few sentences as humanly possible. And one of the best recommendations here is print the email if it comes to you through an email, and then highlight only the things that actually need a response. And you'll be amazed at how little probably needs a response. There's lots that they're trying to get under your skin about. You let that go. You don't worry about that. Well, obviously you don't care about me. I'll give you an example of one that was shared with us, but it came from a family context, and it came from a sibling. They're adult siblings, and it started off, to their other siblings. Well, as always, I'm the last to know that Thanksgiving is not happening at mom's house this year. Of course, no one tells me, no one ever tells me anything. I mean, I'm the one that nobody actually cares about or loves in this whole family. That's always been the way it's been, right? And you see it just going and going and going like this. And they're trying to get reactions from the other siblings and whatnot. Um, I don't know when people were going to ever get around to, maybe you're going to tell me next Thanksgiving when Thanksgiving this year was, so there'd be this sarcasm, this biting uh, criticism, and past injustices. They'll often bring up things that they're still harboring anger about from years and years ago. Um, and what you're going to do is you're going to just, in this case, highlight what needs to be communicated. Yes, Thanksgiving is going to be at Cindy's house this year. Is going to be on Saturday night, and you can bring, dessert, or you can bring a salad, and that would be the reply. And you sidestep all the other nonsense, and so here's an example that incorporates some of the other parts of the BIF. Hi Howard, thanks for your email, and there's the friendly piece. um, Thanksgiving is happening at Cindy's house this year on Saturday. People are arriving at 6 o'clock. Please let Cindy know in advance if you're going to bring a salad or a dessert, and look forward to seeing you then. Boom, right? Sidestepping all of the stuff that was intended to get you escalated, and it's going to drive them crazy, by the way, if you just respond to what's business. And so that's the brief thing. It's also informative. There's the I, just the necessary information, no opinions or advice, and that's all you're going to share. Um, so in a work context, it's thank you for, it's a long accusatory kind of email about, nobody lets me know anything, or you never get your reports done in time, and all the rest of it. And this has massive consequences for the organization, blah, 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 blah. And you say, thank you for your email. The report is, will arrive a Tuesday morning, as I indicated before. And if there are problems with it, you can vet it and get it back to my team by the end of day, and we'll make the adjustments. Um, uh, you know, Thank you for your your concern. And you just sidestep all the nonsense and just say what's going to happen. And so there's a firmness. There's the first F. There's a firmness to it. And, you can even say things like, you can choose option A or option B. Um, and that's all I'm going to say on the subject, right? And by the way, I need to know um, by Wednesday whether it's option A or option B. Then you're in a position of saying, if they don't tell you which option they're going with, saying, you didn't get back to me by that time, so we're going to go with option A. So there's a consequence to it, right? And they're trying to undermine. Oh, and by the way, if Howard is going to show up at 6 o'clock for Thanksgiving and he's bring a dessert or a salad, he'll probably bring dinner rolls. Okay, just be prepared for that, because that's a passive aggressive kind of thing, right? So they'll bring something or a second turkey, right, that nobody needs or wants, but oh, I'm such a martyr, I brought a whole turkey,
Yeah, just to go against what was actually
exactly.
asked.
And and when they do that, don't get upset and say you didn't bring a salad or a dessert like we told you. Just say thank you for the turkey or thank you for the dinner rolls or whatever it is, and move on, because then it just feeds them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's firm. And friendly is the last point. And we kind of reframe this as polite and courteous,
Mm-hmm.
because friendly can get you into trouble. Friendly is, hey, Adrian, how's your weekend? And Adrian tells me all about his weekend. Then he asks me about mine. And in the course of that, now I've got data about Adrian's weekend, and I could manipulate that information. And we've seen this happen in workplaces. I think I even shared the example some weeks ago, but where a executive assistant asks her new boss how his weekend was, and he'd taken the kids and spouse away for a Wonderland kind of weekend of some sort. While he'd given permission to some of his staff to come in and do overtime on the weekend to prepare a report. The lead into this was he offered to come in that weekend and work with his new staff on that report. And they said, you weren't around for the whole lead up to this and whatnot. We'll show it to you Monday, and you can make any changes you want, and we'll roll it out on Wednesday. But, thanks for letting us come in on the weekend, and, we'll do that. We'll call you if we need you. And he's like, yeah, sure, because I'll come in. And they're like, no, it'll be a waste of your time. So he does take his spouse and kids away to a theme park. And he comes in on Monday morning and engages with who we're about to find out is a high conflict executive assistant, and tells her all. She says, how was your weekend? He tells all about what he and his wife and the kids did. And within an hour, it was flooded throughout the organization that the boss made 6 of his employees come in on the weekend and work through the weekend while he took his kids and wife to a theme park, right? Um, that's what they will do with friendly. So, what do you do instead? Hey, boss, how was your weekend? It was great, thanks. How was yours? Boom, that's it. Give them nothing, right? Because they will manipulate anything they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we say it's not friendly, it's polite and courteous. My
Mm-hmm.
weekend was great, thanks. How was yours? If they tell you stuff, fine, just be polite but do not give it away, because they will take all of that data and somehow twist it, manipulate it, and work it against you.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, unfortunately, we can't change friendly to polite and courteous, because then we'd have like a BIFCA, and
Yeah,
the
just wouldn't.
acronym just wouldn't work.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but yeah, we're gonna talk more about BIF next week and more of these strategies to come. So stay
yep,
tuned, and thank you for joining us today. Lots more to work with, again, with power, with high conflict personalities, and strategies of how to communicate and handle these conflicts and manage these behaviors. So yeah, we're Vogue's leadership group, and thank you for joining us on the Social Power Lab. We will see you next time.
next time, everyone, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Social Power Lab podcast. Make sure you join us next week as we continue to uncover the hidden dynamics of social power all around us, because every conversation changes the world one interaction at a time. You can listen to the Social Power Lab podcast on YouTube under Social Power Lab _VLG, on Spotify under Social Power Lab, on Substack under Social Power Lab, and on Apple Podcast under Social Power Lab. Thank you and have a wonderful day. This podcast was produced by Trenton Vokes. The theme was produced and written by Adrian Deschamps.